Hello, I'm Ramon Martinez from La Raza Historical Society. It's Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024. We're in Wilmington, California, visiting the Drum Barracks. And the Drum Barracks were the headquarters of the United States for Southern California and Arizona during the Civil War. And the Drum Barracks, 1862 till 1871, U.S. Army headquarters for Southern California and Arizona Territory. This is the junior officers' house from those times. It was a real large barracks operation. There were more than 20 buildings here. Most U.S. Civil War history acts as if the Civil War took place in Virginia. Civil War in the West is not well understood because the West was 40% of the U.S. landmass that needed to be protected during the Civil War era. And we're here specifically from La Raza Historical Society because there was a battalion of California Lancers who served in the Civil War. And there were 4 companies raised in California, 1 in San Francisco, 1 in Los Angeles, 1 in I think Santa Barbara, and another in San Jose, California. Jose Ramon Pico, a native of San Jose, is the one who pulled together Company A of the battalion.
Okay, my name is George Green. I'm a tour guide here at the Drum Barracks, and I just wanted to let you guys know, thanks for coming down to the Drum Barracks today. Really appreciate that. Well, if you can notice over here on the sign, we were the headquarters for the U.S. Army from 1862 to 1871 for Southern California and the Arizona Territory. This building here is one of 22 buildings that was on 60 acres. This building here housed the lieutenants. So the junior officers would have been here. For anyone that was in the military, you understand the officer class is on top. Then you have the NCOs and the privates would be on the bottom. Here would be the lieutenants. The house was always divided. So the house was a duplex. One side would have been for the married officers. The other side would have been for unaccompanied officers. The house was started in 1862. It was finished by 1863. There was a lot of different things during its life. After 1872, about 1873, it became a boarding house. It was actually a high school from 1890 to 1910. It was Wilmington High School. If you look over here at our cannon, that's a 3-inch ordnance rifle. That cannon was made in 1863 in Phoenix Ironworks in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. It would shoot about 1,800 yards. It weighs about 1,700 pounds. It had a crew of 7 and would be pulled by 6 horses. It's a very large cannon. If you can see the green bush up there on the trellis, just above the cannon, that would be called, that's called a Lady Banksia rosebush. That was planted there in 1876 by the Reverend Bogue. Reverend Bogue was a Presbyterian minister who lived here in the house as he served the congregation of the Presbyterian Church here in Wilmington. The bricks you saw in the courtyard, those are original bricks, but they came out of the foundations and they came out of the fireplaces. And they were repurposed and reused. In 1977, they did a retrofit for the earthquakes. We all live in California, so I understand about that, just having one on New Year's Day. And they were able to make this wonderful courtyard out of those bricks. The white picket fence went around all 60 acres, and that was used to keep out the horses, the mules, the goats, the sheep, and the camels, because we had camels. So we had camels. And that's our tatubia tree. That's in the middle of the courtyard. And that's very close to a jacaranda, so we'll have a lot of the purple flowers in the springtime that I get to clean up. And that's pretty much, we're at the back side of the house. We do have, we'll show you the front side here in a little while. And out of those 8,000 volunteers, we'd have maybe 400 or 500 here at one time. After the war, we'd have as little as 6. 6 guys all the way up to 1,600 guys. So it just depended on the different regiments that were coming through after the war, trying to fill the void in Arizona, New Mexico.
The volunteers that were here, that passed through here, were they just from California, or were they also from Arizona? And
They were all from California, mostly,
California.
mostly Northern California. Later on, after the war, after 1866, we started getting regular U.S. troops coming back. So that was regular troops. They would be from all over the country. A lot of those regiments actually came from back east and fought during the Civil War. So you had some very experienced troops, some very experienced officers after the war. Some Californians actually stayed in the military after the war. They were very experienced. This was a main staging area for the troops during the war to get to Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And supply line was long and tenuous. You had 2 different ways. You had the La Paz Road to the south, the government road a little bit to the north, and you also had the boats that would go all the way around the Baja Peninsula, go up the Gulf of California, then go up the Colorado River to Fort Yuma and to Fort Mojave. But that wasn't always so reliable. It would take the exact same amount of time to go by wagon. So they could put 3,000 pounds on a wagon, off you went. About 20 days from now, you'd be in Fort Yuma. So we were a major supply point also. Very important, Los Angeles was very pro-Confederate during the war. So Los Angeles was about 70% pro-Confederate. So that's another reason we were here. You guys probably saw the Banning House on the way in. He's up the street. He was very influential with getting this put here. These were Eastern-style buildings. All this wood was prefabricated back east. It all came from New York and Connecticut. So it cost over $1 million to build all those buildings.
How many buildings at its height, and how many people at its height were here?
We were built, we had 22 buildings. We were built for about 600 men, but we had up to 1,200 at some point, especially after the war. And they would have what they called sub-camps, so you'd have tent camps. Phineas Banning was the father of the harbor. He was an entrepreneur. He came here in the 1850s. He was a freighter. He ran a stagecoach service, and father of the harbor. Benjamin Davis Wilson, we'll see a picture of him inside also. He came here in the 1840s when it was still part of Mexico. He was a mountain man. He moved from New Mexico, came into California, married into a family, very influential family. He owned Rancho Jurupa, which is out on Riverside. He also owned San Marino, Pasadena, parts of downtown Los Angeles. And he also was best friends with Banning. So he spent a lot of time down here in Wilmington. He loved Wilmington.
Which family did he marry into?
I want to say, I might get this one wrong, I know Yorba family,
Oh, okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
to which family?
Yorba.
And where was he from originally?
He was from back east. I want to say Banning was from Delaware. And I'm not really sure where Benjamin Davis Wilson was from, unfortunately. But I believe he might have been from Delaware also. But he was one of those misguided youths that did not want to be a farmer, so he became a mountain man and made his way west. And found himself in New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Actually was asked to leave, came here to Los Angeles, and became very successful. Mount Wilson is named after him. And he is the grandfather of George S. Patton, who is a wonderful general from World War II. So, in case people didn't know, Patton was born here in California. So, he's California.
Where was Patton born?
California, San Marino.
Oh.
San Marino area. He was one of Benjamin Wilson's daughters was his mother. So.
Well, I was a little apprehensive about any impediments, that would put up, us to see everything. But it's a great layout.
Stairs.
No, that's okay. You'll go. And it's going to be worth a lot for our company. Sure. That's how I travel.
Hey, this is actually the front of the Drum Barracks Junior Officers House.
But this port was actually because this port was so heavily damaged in 1977 that it rebuilt it. Otherwise, it would have been all the way across.
Oh, a real, yeah,
Real porch.
real porch.
Most of the siding's original. The floors are original. We probably felt it when we're taking you through. You get a little wobbly in there. The door frames, window frames, some of the window glass. In fact, we had a gentleman here replacing window glass today. He said it was a very early paint. I don't even know.
Picket fence that would have gone all the way around all the fort back in its day. Here's the side of the building.
I grew up in a boarding house, and they had gas lights, and they had the gas light fixtures converted.
They asked, will we ever gas lights? And I said, no. We will put in apples or lamps till it. So we missed the gas light.
The gas light period.
Yeah, so we never really saw any evidence that we were under the gas light.
Side by side.
Oh, that's good. And the chamber pot. We have one upstairs. Chamber pot. I'm sure your grandparents want to have one too. That is to be the front of the drum barracks. Out behind you would have been the parade ground. We would have had buildings on the left and a big square going all the way around. And you see the green trees way out there. That's where the T-shaped barracks would have been, where the soldiers lived. And then you would have the laundresses' quarters, the powder magazine coming around. You would have the musicians' quarters, which are far over here in the right-hand corner, actually to your left. And then you would come back around here to the junior officers' quarters. And this house was a lot of different things. After the military, it became a private residence. From 1890 to 1910, it was a high school. From 1910 1914, a private house. 1914 1965, it was a boarding house. And then eventually purchased by the state of California. It is leased by the city of Los Angeles and ran by the Parks and Recreation. And we signed a 50-year lease. I got 50 more years to work, so we're doing good.
Here is more information about Fort Drum and the Mexicans of Northern California in the 1860s. First of all, you'll find information in this book, El Cinco de Mayo, by David Hayes Bautista. And he talks about how El Cinco de Mayo celebration in California began in Northern California. This is a map of Northern California in the 1860s. You see all the dots are the mining camps. This is a close-up of the map, and you'll see that there are 130 dots representing the Mexican mining camps, mainly in Northern California in 1860 through 1870. This is a detail of the map. You'll see the shape of Santa Clara County. And Santa Clara County had a number of mining camps at that time. This is a poster talking about re-electing President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. It's in English and Spanish. And this is one of the things the miners did in their juntas patrióticas, their patriotic assemblies. They raised dollars to help Benito Juárez fight the French who had invaded Mexico. And they also got involved in American politics because they saw both efforts as being anti-slave efforts. This book is called California Lancers, 1st Battalion Native Cavalry of the Far West. In this book by Tom Przelski, he talks about how Californios raised 4 companies, about 200 men each, across California. One was in San Francisco, one was in San Jose, another in Santa Barbara, and another in Los Angeles. This is Jose Ramon Pico, native of California, who raised Company A in San Jose. This is a copy of an ad in the paper. In those days, the paper was La Voz de Mexico, a Spanish language paper from San Francisco. And here's the text. It says, habiendo sido nombrado por el gobernador Stanford, capitán de dicha compañía, el que suscribe invite a los californios que desean alistarse en ella, que piden más información en la calle Pine y Sensom en San Francisco y en el City Hall de San Jose. This is a close-up of the National Hotel in San Juan Bautista, where the troops were barracked. This is a map from San Francisco to Gilroy, all the way down to San Luis Obispo on one side. The other one went from Gilroy over the Pacheco Pass, down through Visalia, the San Joaquin Valley, to Los Angeles. At Los Angeles, they went to the Drum Barracks. The Drum Barracks were named after Colonel Richard Drum, a U.S. Army officer. And as you can see on the map, they're south of Los Angeles, just south of San Pedro, near the port where military supplies could be taken in and distributed. From Drum Barracks, all the troops that went there went south and continued their trip to Yuma. This map shows the route from Fort Yuma on the left across the California and Arizona desert to Tucson. From Tucson, they went south to Tubac, which is a very important base from which the Españoles and Mexicanos have traveled north to California and Arizona for many, many years. South of Tubac is Nogales. Captain Pico was involved when a group of deserters from the U.S. Army took weapons with them and were then captured by the Mexicans who were part of Maximilian's supporters. So Pico and another officer went down to Magdalena in Mexico to get the troops back. They crossed the international border to Magdalena and actually got the men returned to the U.S. When you look on the internet, this is a picture you'll see of Fort Drum. And right in the middle there, you'll see a horse. But to the right of the horse is a camel, because the Army transferred 16 camels to Fort Drum, trying to see if they would work for the Army across the desert. Fort Drum today is located in Wilmington, which used to be South San Pedro, the port. And this is the parking lot view of the building. It's actually the rear of the building. And we were not allowed to go inside the building to take pictures because all the collection is private. This is a picture of the front of the building. The building had 2 stories. Part of the rooms were set aside for married officers, and the other rooms were set aside for unmarried officers. Again, we did not get a chance to visit inside, but if you want to see the inside museum, go to C-SPAN videos and look for Drum Barracks Civil War Museum, Part 1 and Part 2, and you'll get a tour of the inside. This is the parlor inside the building, and this is a Gatling gun. That's a cannon that has many barrels that go in a circle, and were pretty advanced in those days. You can learn more about the drum barracks by reading a book called The Beat of the Drum by Don McDowell.